No introductions today, no names, just one moment, one sentence that split my reality like glass under pressure. Part 1. She spit the words like I wasn't even human. It was already dark when I got back. The street lights flickered like they were hesitating to stay on, and the hallway smelled like something burnt, maybe toast or whatever. She was too distracted to watch in the oven. Our apartment door was cracked open. That wasn't normal. Inside, the lights were on, but only halfway. One lamp in the living room buzzed quietly, and a half-empty wine bottle stood like a prop on the dining table. There were 2 glasses, one still damp. Only one lipstick stain. She was standing by the window, scrolling, not pacing, not talking, just scrolling, like the world wasn't supposed to happen around her. I said nothing, not at first. I dropped my keys quietly, hoping she'd notice. She didn't. So, I asked, not gently, not coldly, just flat, "Did you forget what day it is?" She didn't turn around, and then without a pause, she let it rip. God, do you ever stop? It's always about you. It's exhausting. She didn't yell it. She meant it. Every syllable like she'd been waiting to say it, like this had been building. And my birthday was just the excuse. I stood there. No anger, just that awful feeling in your chest like you're standing in someone else's home, like you just walked in on your own life without an invitation. She finally turned, and when she saw my face, it happened. Her hand dropped the phone. Her posture shifted, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Regret. Not the good kind, the defensive kind. The kind that isn't sorry for what she said, just sorry she got caught in how deeply she meant it. I didn't mean it like that. She stammered, "I love you. You know I love you." But even her voice sounded rehearsed. I noticed her coat, not the one she wears to work, the one she said she left in storage, the one she said didn't fit anymore. She wore it tonight. I glanced at the table again. 2 glasses, only one stain, and suddenly the air got heavier. She said, "Please don't start with your imagination again." I didn't answer. I just stared at the chair across from hers. It was still warm. I stood in that silence longer than I probably should have. The kind of silence where even your heartbeat sounds like it's trying to whisper, "Don't move." The wine glass, her coat, that chair. It all stared back at me like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even bothered to hide. And yet, she watched me. Watched how I reacted like I was on trial for noticing too much. Men, yeah, I'm using her name now, took a step forward. Not the comforting kind, not even defensive. Just a single cautious step, like approaching a wounded animal. Her eyes darted to the chair, and then back to me, calculating how much I had seen, how much I understood. And I think that was the moment that broke something in me. Not the insult, not the birthday neglect, but the way she looked at me like I was an idiot she needed to outsmart rather than a husband she once loved. I pulled the chair back and sat down. It was warm, just like I thought. Not warm from sunlight or from being cleaned. Warm from a body, from weight, from time spent. I didn't ask her anything yet. I just said, "How long was he here?" She froze. "What are you talking about?" I looked at her with a kind of stare you give a liar who already knows the truth isn't coming out clean. The glass, the chair, the coat. "Do I need to explain your apartment to you?" She scoffed. Scoffed like I'd accused her of hiding cookies. "Not another man. You're being dramatic." And there it was, the gaslight, right on cue. She did this often in smaller ways. When she forgot something, it was because I never reminded her. When she flirted in front of me, It was my insecurity. When she came home late, it was always work, and I should be grateful she even tried to provide. But this wasn't small. This was today. This was supposed to be the one day, my day, where I didn't have to question my worth. I stood up again, my legs stiff, my mind already rewinding through every late gym session, every mysterious team dinner, every time she told me to go to bed without her. They weren't moments anymore. They were evidence. "I can smell him," I said. My voice was flat but not weak. "Not this time. He wore cologne, not yours. And you changed the sheets this morning, didn't you? Not for me. For him." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. That's when I walked to the bedroom. I didn't touch anything. I just looked. The sheets were perfectly smoothed, but there were 2 water bottles on the nightstand, one half empty. A small towel tossed carelessly by the edge of the bed. No detail screamed, but they whispered everything. When I came back, she was sitting now in the same chair he must have been in earlier. She finally broke the silence. "You're spiraling. I messed up." "Okay." But nothing happened today. Today, not never. Not you're wrong, just not today. I nodded as if to say thank you, not for the honesty, but for confirming what I needed to know. That I wasn't paranoid, that my heart wasn't crazy, that this ache in my ribs was real and earned. Then I asked, "How long have you been cheating on me?" She didn't deny it. She just said it didn't mean anything. He was a distraction. A distraction. 11 years, a home, a life, my birthday. And I was just the static noise she wanted to drown out with someone louder. I felt something inside me stop like a gear finally slipping out of place. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even pack a bag. I just whispered, "Thanks for the gift," and walked into the bathroom, not to hide, but because that was the only door I could close between us for now. I didn't lock the bathroom door. I didn't slam it either. I just closed it slowly and leaned against the cold tile wall like it might hold me up better than the woman in the other room ever had. The silence in that bathroom was thicker than the air. I could hear her outside pacing. I imagined she was rehearsing her next move, trying to figure out how to manipulate the mess she created into something salvageable. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. Not because I wanted to call someone. I had no one, no friends I could confide in without shame. No family who wouldn't say, "I told you so." I wanted answers, the kind she wasn't going to give me. So, I did something I swore I'd never do in our marriage. I opened her messages. Her phone had been left unattended on the hallway table. She trusted me enough to never snoop because I never did. She always made me feel like checking would be a betrayal of her trust. Funny, isn't it? How the guilty ones weaponize loyalty. I stepped out quickly and silently. The screen was already dimming, but not locked. My birthday was still on the screen, a calendar notification as if mocking me. I opened the message thread with the name Lando. Turns out it wasn't short for Orlando or some pet name. It was a nickname for a married man named Trent Lonigan, her personal trainer. Yep. The man I paid for when she said she was working on bettering herself. The one she said I was being weird about because you're just intimidated. I'm finally confident. The texts. I'll never forget the first one I read. "He thinks you were at your sister's again." Poor guy. "Tell him happy birthday from me." I stared at it for a long time, like my brain needed extra time to believe it was real. As if reading it again would somehow make the words rearrange into something innocent. But it only got worse. Scroll after scroll, jokes about me, about how clueless I was, about how easy it was to sneak around because he's always so grateful when I come home. There were photos too, nothing explicit, but enough to make my chest seize. Her wearing that same green coat, the one she used to say didn't suit her, standing outside a hotel with her arms around a man I'd never met, but somehow instantly recognized as everything I wasn't. The worst message came from 3 nights ago. After next week, I'll be done. Just need to find a clean way out. He still thinks I love him. He's like a loyal dog. That one broke me. I sat down right there on the floor with her phone in my hand and felt the kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace. It comes from numbness, a vacuum of identity. Who was I now? A man who had spent years believing he was building a life, only to discover it had already been foreclosed behind his back. I didn't even hear her approach until she was in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes half defiant and half exhausted, like I was the one who had worn her out. "You went through my phone," she said, her voice low but sharp. "I did," I answered quietly. "That's a huge violation, Dorian." I laughed. I actually laughed. It was the kind of broken sound that even surprised me. "A violation," I repeated. "You call that a violation? You've been building a second life behind my back like it's a hobby. And you're mad I opened the door to the basement." She didn't answer. "Do you love him?" I asked, almost afraid of her answer, but not enough to avoid it. Her eyes didn't flinch. That told me everything. "I don't know what love means anymore," she said, and somehow that hurt worse than a yes. There it was. Not just betrayal, but emotional erasure. Like everything we ever had was just a placeholder. Like she'd moved on emotionally months ago and left me clinging to her ghost. I handed her back the phone. No yelling, no threats, no drama. "I'm going to sleep on the couch," I said. "Don't worry, I won't violate anything else." And I walked past her, the woman I had once begged to marry me, and felt like a stranger in my own skin. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling in the dim light from the kitchen, my body completely still, but my mind clawing at every thread of memory it could find. Every laugh we ever shared. Every "I love you." Every moment she looked me in the eye and said I was enough. All of it replayed with a sour taste now, like I had been watching a movie and only just realized it was fiction. The woman in the other room had made love to someone else while pretending I was still her home. I wasn't angry yet. That came later. What I felt then was worse, like I was being erased slowly, one piece at a time. Around 4 a.m., when the silence felt unbearable, I sat up and picked up my phone. My heart thumped like a slow drum, not out of rage, but from something colder. Curiosity dipped in despair. I opened her text thread again and scrolled until I found the number. Trent Lando, the man she said was just helping her stay healthy. I copied his number, stared at it, and dialed without knowing what I was going to say. I didn't even expect him to answer, but he did. He picked up on the third ring, his voice low, confused. "Hello?" I didn't say my name. I didn't need to. I just said, "You've been sleeping with my wife." The silence that followed was longer than I expected. Then came a slow sigh. "I was wondering when this call would come," he said. He didn't even try to deny it. He didn't panic. No gaslighting. No. Who is this? Just calm acceptance, like he was waiting for the receipt to show up. "She told me you two were already over," he added. "She said you were just living together for practical reasons." I felt my face go hot. not because I believed him, but because I knew she had probably told him that it fit. It tracked. She had prepped the soil for her next chapter while I was still watering the roots of something I thought we shared. "Did you love her?" I asked, my voice quieter now. He was honest again. "I don't know. It started as something fun. Then it got messy. I backed off a while ago. Man, you should talk to her about that." I closed my eyes. "You think that makes it better?" "No," he replied, "but it makes it real." That was it. The call ended with no screaming, no threats. Just two men sitting on opposite ends of a lie, both a little broken by the same woman in different ways. When I hung up, I felt this odd clarity, like stepping into a room you've always been afraid to open and realizing it's empty. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. But the world had one more slap for me before sunrise. When I opened our joint banking app, the one we used to save for vacations, emergencies, Sunday kids, I saw the transaction history. Days earlier, she had withdrawn nearly $6,000, labeled it as training expenses. That was our savings. My money, too. I clicked the details. The address, a spa resort 3 towns over, 2-night stay, couples package. She had used our future to fund her escape plan. I walked to the bedroom. She was still asleep, the moonlight tracing her face, like it had no idea what she'd done. I stared at her for a long time. I waited for the hurt to come back, for the panic, the grief, the collapse. But it didn't. Instead, I felt this strange surge of power. Not because I had won anything, but because I finally understood what I was dealing with. This wasn't just cheating. It was removal. She had carefully erased me from her plans and was now sleeping peacefully in the bed she burned. So I turned around, walked to the kitchen, and started writing something. Not a note, not a letter, but a list. The list began simple, just a few words at first. A quiet act of rebellion in a house that used to echo with laughter. I sat at the kitchen counter, the same spot where we once planned our anniversary trip to Portland, the same place where we laughed over burnt pancakes during lockdown. And now, where I quietly planned my exit while she slept a few feet away, breathing steadily like everything was still normal. I didn't have a master plan. There was no dramatic revenge fantasy playing in my head. I was too tired for that. I just needed clarity, something to focus on that didn't involve breaking down or begging for answers I already had. So I wrote bullet by bullet. Cancel joint account access. Contact landlord about removing my name. Print text screenshots just in case. Pack clothes, passport, laptop, Ellie's card. Leave the ring. Don't wake her. I stared at that last one for a long time. Don't wake her. It felt too gentle. But I knew if I did, she'd either lie, cry, or turn the whole thing into my fault again. She had a way of making her betrayal sound like something I caused. Too sensitive, too distant, too boring. So I decided to disappear while she still thought she was in control. At 6:12 a.m., I quietly wheeled out my suitcase. I didn't take much, just essentials. The apartment was still, and her bedroom door was closed. I paused at it, not because I wanted to go in, but because some broken part of me still wanted her to stop me to leap out, say it was all a test or a mistake, or even just that she was sorry in a way that felt real. Nothing. Just silence. The same kind she gave me for months while pretending we were okay. On the kitchen table, I left 2 things. My wedding ring in a clear glass, a small white envelope. Inside the envelope wasn't a letter. No dramatic "you broke me" speech. No spiral of emotions, just a single printed photo from her messages. The one of her with Trent at the spa. I circled the timestamp in red pen and wrote 3 words underneath. You chose this. That's it. As I shut the door behind me, something happened that I didn't expect. I exhaled, like my lungs had been holding on to poison for months, and finally let go. I walked down the stairs with no destination in mind, just moving. My phone buzzed around 6:45 a.m. A message from her. Where are you? I didn't reply. I turned off notifications and dropped the phone into my backpack. By 7:30, I was at a diner I used to visit during my college years. I ordered black coffee and the same cinnamon roll I hadn't touched in over a decade. The waitress didn't ask why I looked like I hadn't slept. I appreciated that. For the first time in weeks, no one expected anything from me. But peace doesn't last. By 9:15 a.m., Emma had 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 1 text that said, "Please come home. We need to talk." I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but she had. She meant exactly for it to happen. She just didn't expect me to see it or leave or stay gone. The next message hit harder. I told him it's over. It meant nothing. You mean everything. Please, Dorian. She used my name. She never used my name unless she wanted control. And that's when it all clicked. The panic wasn't about me. It was about her safety net being ripped away. About realizing she no longer had both lives to juggle. The version of her that betrayed me couldn't survive without the version of me that forgave her. But that version of me was gone. Still, I stayed seated. I listened to one voicemail out of morbid curiosity. In it, she was crying. But not the kind of crying that comes from love. The kind that comes from losing a sense of superiority. She said, "I saw your list. I saw what you left. Please don't do this. Let's fix it. Let's talk." I turned off the phone completely and left it in my locker at the YMCA where I used to swim laps before life got too heavy. I didn't want it buzzing in my pocket all day. I didn't want her voice trying to dig its way back in. I just wanted stillness. And that's exactly what I got for 2 more hours until I came back to find someone waiting for me in the lobby. Not her, but her mother. And she wasn't there to plead for her daughter. She was there to tell me something that made everything even worse. I hadn't seen Men's mother in over a year. Lorraine was one of those women who aged with poise, but carried judgment in her posture like a coat she never took off. She never liked me. I was never man enough, never ambitious, never assertive. But that morning, when I walked into the YMCA lobby and saw her sitting there with a handbag clutched to her chest, like it was keeping her heart inside, she didn't look like the woman who used to subtly insult my job or question our apartment size. She looked tired, shaken, maybe even ashamed. "Dorian," she said, standing, her voice tight. "We need to talk now." I didn't respond. I didn't want to sit. Didn't want her to feel like this was a reunion. But she walked right past me and out the door, forcing me to follow her like some lost kid being dragged to the principal's office. Outside, she stopped by her car and opened the passenger side door. "I'm not getting in your car," I said flatly. "Then stand there. But you're going to listen to what I have to say, whether you like it or not," she snapped. That old sharpness in her tone almost made me walk away. But something about the way her hand trembled when she reached into her purse made me pause. "She told me you left," Lorraine said, not looking at me. "She's a mess. You know that, don't you? She always has been." I didn't reply. She called me crying, babbling about how you saw everything. And then she started saying things that didn't make sense about running, about lawyers, about... She stopped herself. Then she looked up at me. "She didn't tell you about the account, did she?" "What account?" Lorraine's lips tightened. Then she handed me a folded bank statement. She's been transferring money to a separate account for almost a year. Thousands every month. Under your name. She forged your consent documents. She planned to drain what was left and vanish. She even had a flight booked. New Mexico tomorrow morning. I stared at the paper in my hand, the numbers like flames licking at the edges of my remaining sanity. Routing numbers, dates, amounts, it was all there. Withdrawals from our joint business savings, a side venture I had started, hoping to one day go full-time with my freelance work. I thought we were building a future. She was preparing for an exit. She used your social security number, Lorraine added, and she listed you as an inactive business partner. If she had pulled it off, you'd have been liable for any debts. I couldn't breathe for a moment. It was too calculated, too meticulous. This wasn't an affair. This was a dismantling of my life in quiet increments. She wasn't just running away with another man. She was making sure I couldn't follow. Not legally, not financially. She called me this morning in a panic. Lorraine went on, her voice shaking now. She kept saying she miscalculated, that she thought you'd break down and stay. She never thought you'd actually walk out. I looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, Lorraine didn't seem like a cold, judgmental mother-in-law. She seemed like a woman watching her daughter burn everything down, and finally being forced to admit the fire was real. She's my daughter, she said quietly. But I'm not here to defend her. I came to give you this. You need to protect yourself. And if you're smart, you'll never speak to her again. I nodded slowly, took the paper, walked away. But my chest was heaving with something new. Not just betrayal, not just pain, something sharper, something closer to fury. I had been faithful, patient, quiet, and forgiving. And she had not only cheated, she had plotted, weaponized my trust like a scalpel, carved her new life out of my spine. And she wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she'd failed. Back at the YMCA locker room, I stared at the bank statement for 10 minutes before finally opening my locker and grabbing my dead phone. I powered it on. 52 messages. I didn't read a single one. Instead, I typed 5 words and hit send the account. I know everything. Less than 5 seconds later, she called. I didn't answer. She called again and again. 23 missed calls by noon. I didn't pick up. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. But I did read one message, the longest one. She wrote it like a confession, like a script rehearsed too many times in front of a mirror. Dorian, please. I messed up. I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you things were falling apart. I was scared of losing myself. The money, it wasn't what it looks like. I was trying to build something for both of us just in case. Trent meant nothing. He was a mistake. I never planned on hurting you. I was just lost. She wasn't lost. She had a map, a fake identity, a getaway fund, and a plane ticket. The only thing she lost was control when I left, instead of breaking. I waited until the next day. She sent a text that read, "Please just talk to me face to face. Let me explain." Normally, I would have ignored it, but something inside me needed to hear her squirm. Not out of revenge, but for closure, for confirmation that she wasn't some tragic, confused soul. I needed to see that she was exactly what she'd proven herself to be. Calculated, cold, and cornered. We met at a public cafe in the middle of town, neutral ground. She picked the spot. She probably assumed I wouldn't cause a scene. She wasn't wrong. I arrived first and sat outside. It was warm, breezy, a day that should have felt peaceful. Then I saw her walking across the parking lot. Mean in her white blouse, hair pinned back like she was headed to a job interview, not a reckoning. She looked thinner. Maybe she hadn't been sleeping. Or maybe she was still trying to present herself as fragile, a victim of her own bad decisions. She approached slowly with a fake smile, too exhausted to stay on her face. "Hey," she said softly, sliding into the chair across from me. I didn't return the greeting. She stared at me for a few seconds. When I didn't speak, she reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers. "These are the bank documents. Everything I did, I brought them. I want to make it right. I looked at them. I didn't take them. You didn't bring them to fix anything," I said, my voice low. "You brought them because you know the fallout's coming and you want to play the reformed villain before it hits." Her expression changed immediately. That small crack in her mask appeared again. "That's not fair. You forged my name on financial documents. You drained our savings and had the audacity to write training expenses next to your affair getaway. You didn't want to come clean. You wanted a clean exit. You just didn't think I'd get up and walk away before you had the last word." She blinked, swallowed hard. I panicked. "No," I said, "you planned." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I spoke to Trent. That landed. Her lips parted slightly, her pupils sharpened, and she shifted in her seat, like she needed to either run or attack. I watched it all happen in real time. She wasn't ready for that. He told me everything. I continued. "You said we were over. You said I was just staying out of convenience. You lied to him just like you lied to me. You built two worlds and thought you'd get to live in whichever one served you best." She was quiet now, fidgeting with a napkin, eyes scanning the table like she was trying to solve a math equation she didn't study for. Finally, she spoke. I was unhappy. I felt like I was fading. "You stopped looking at me the way you used to." I almost laughed. "No, me. I kept looking. You just stopped seeing me as someone worth looking back at." That silence stretched too long. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. But even then, they looked rehearsed, like she knew what sorrow was supposed to look like, but had never actually tasted it. "I don't want to lose you," she said. "I don't want this to be the end." It was a strange thing to hear. Not because it moved me, but because I realized in that moment she didn't want me. She wanted the structure I gave her, the security, the version of herself she could be while still keeping secrets. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a foundation she could stand on while reaching elsewhere. So, I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. Quietly, I slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Separation papers. Not divorce yet, just distance. Legal distance. I need time to rebuild what you broke." She opened it, skimmed it, her face slowly crumpling like it had finally sunk in. This wasn't a negotiation. She looked up and said, "Is there someone else?" I shook my head. "No, but there will be. And when she shows up, I'll still be rebuilding. But at least she won't have to share space with your ghost." She didn't cry, not fully, just stared like she was looking at a version of me she never imagined she'd create. And that's when I stood up, tucked my chair in, and ended the conversation with a single sentence. "You should have left when you had the chance. Now you'll live knowing I walked away first." 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from me again after that meeting at the cafe. The separation papers were signed and filed. She didn't fight. She didn't stall. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to save. Or maybe for once she understood what real consequences felt like. Either way, The silence was louder than her tears ever were. I moved into a small sublet apartment across town. Not fancy, not permanent, but mine. The kind of place where the drawers don't stick and the bathroom fan sounds like a plane engine. But there was peace in that little space. No shadows waiting in the hallway. No second-guessing myself every time I looked at my phone. Then one rainy afternoon, a letter came. Handwritten, no return address. Just my name in familiar cursive across the envelope. I sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd found on Facebook Marketplace for $30, and opened it slowly. I've been in therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind you pretend to do so people forgive you faster. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't either. But I wanted to tell you that you changed me. You showed me a kind of love I didn't deserve. You didn't leave because you stopped loving me. You left because I did. And I hope someday you'll find someone who holds your heart with the same care you always held mine. I'll never forget you. Please don't forget yourself. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with Ellie's crayon birthday card. The only two things from my old life I kept. Because here's the truth. I didn't need men to validate my worth anymore. I didn't need closure, revenge, or even peace from her. What I needed was what I gave myself the moment I walked out that door. Permission to start over. These days, I work with small business clients, finally doing the freelance work I used to dream about while pretending we were happy. I go on walks. I write again. I laugh. Not as often as I'd like, but enough. Enough to know that I'm healing. And once in a while, when the sun hits just right, I remember that birthday. The insult, the silence, the wine glass with one stain. And I smile. Not because I'm bitter, but because I made it out of that house with something far more valuable than love. I made it out with myself. Thank you for watching this story unfold here on Reddit Confessions. Now I want to hear from you. What moment in this story hit you the hardest? Was it the phone call, the list, the final meeting at the cafe? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read everyone, and if you've ever walked away from